UB Bulls fans, it's time once again for Bullseye Nation the podcast. This week we take a spotlight and a deep dive into one of the University of Buffalo's top MAC rivals on the football field, who UB just cannot beat on the gridiron, the Ohio Bobcats. We'll have a special insider guest break down why that is, plus we'll have a tech review segment. All that and a whole lot more coming up on this edition of Bullseye Nation, the podcast, and it starts right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Bullseye Nation, the podcast. I'm your host, John Karuba. And for the UB Bulls, it's time for another Mid-American Conference Spotlight, where we highlight rivals that stand in the Bulls' way of trying to get to the top of the Mid-American Conference. This week's team that we're talking about, the Ohio Bobcats. And why did I make that sound effect? Because UB simply has not been able to beat Ohio in a big spot where it's mattered. Ohio, with their latest 31-26 triumph in the 2025 campaign against the Bulls at UB Stadium, now has won 4 straight against UB, 8 of 10 overall. And get this, the Bulls have never won, that's right, never won in Athens in their entire history of playing the Bobcats, going all the way back to 1999. UB is 0-11 against Ohio on the road. If that isn't domination, I don't know what is. But for the Bulls, they just simply have not been able to find a way to make the big play when they've needed it against Ohio. And in that recent matchup, Ohio outgained UB 506 to 370, and time of possession 38 minutes to just 21 for Buffalo. Really, the final score was the only thing that was close in that game. And for UB, this frustration continues as they look to try to get back on top of the Mid-American Conference. There's no denying they have to. And I say this every single season going into the year. The top 2 teams that they have to track down are the Miami, Ohio Redhawks and the Ohio Bobcats. And UB went 0-2 against these teams this year. But in particular, there's a reason that I always highlight Ohio. They continue to find ways to get it done against UB, and it continues to hinder the Bulls' chances of making it to the top of where they ultimately want to go. If they ever hope to get back to Detroit and play in the Mid-American Conference Championship game, UB has to find a way, simply put, to get past the Ohio Bobcats. So in addition to the stats that I just gave you, why else has UB not been able to get it done in close games against Ohio? My special guest has a theory, and it's part of this guest segment right here on Bullseye Nation, the podcast, as we welcome in Stephen Vitt, the Ohio Bobcats insider and host of the Ohio Bobcats podcast, as we get his thoughts on why UB just cannot get over the hump against Ohio. And on this edition of Bullseye Nation, joined by my Ohio Bobcats special guest, Stephen Vitt. Stephen, thank you so much for taking a moment to come on and talking about Ohio Bobcats football. It'll be good to get this perspective. Thanks for coming on and doing this, my friend.
Thank you so much, John, for having me on. I appreciate it.
But before we dive into the Ohio end of things, as an opponent, what are your thoughts on the UB Bulls as a football team last season in the game that you played against them and really over the years?
Well, for starters, over the years, I have found the Buffalo Bulls to be definitely one of the more respectable teams in the MAC. Definitely one of those teams where I feel like they're bound to break out. They're bound to have that good run. And for this past year, it was like towards the end of the season, it was very cold. It was snowing a little bit. More of a back and forth kind of affair between the Bulls and the Bobcats. We were able to pull it out, but it was one of those slowly developing kind of games.
Speaking of the 2025 season, as a Bobcats fan, how would you categorize it? Was it a success, a failure? How do you ultimately feel about the latest version of the Ohio team.
We finished the season with 9 wins. We won the Frisco Bowl. Overall, it was still a generally successful season for us.
What do you think the biggest keys are, as far as we were talking earlier in the show and at the start of this interview about how UB just cannot get past Ohio? From Ohio's perspective, what do you think the keys have been of why Ohio's been able to be so dominant against the Bulls?
It's hard to say just one thing, but knowing that the Ohio Bobcats lately have been a run heavy kind of team on offense and going up to an environment like Buffalo where it gets very cold towards the end of the year and you have to rely on the run, I think the Bobcats know what it's like to play up in Buffalo and even back home in Athens, Ohio, when it gets cold late in November. You just have to, manage the game well. You have to just give the ball off to the running back and just let him, work with it. And just when it comes to Buffalo, they're a hard-nosed team. They are, well coached. We know we know all about that. But I think we have the right preparation and the right game plans in place when we play a team like Buffalo.
1 year from this time in the MAC championship, it will be, Steven.
The Ohio Bobcats taking on the Western Michigan Broncos.
Oh, no love for the Buffalo Bulls then, huh? No love
Probably
for them.
for Buffalo, I would not be surprised if they finish in like third place or something like that. But I would not count out
All
Buffalo.
right,
Yeah,
all right, all right. Little dig. All right, all right. I'll
not counting
note
them out
that.
though. Yeah,
I'll note
yeah.
that. On that note, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on. I'll say to you what my professor said to me. He's a big Dolphins fan, and he said that I'm the only member of Bill's Mafia that he likes. Well, Bullseye Nation fans, I think I finally found the one Ohio Bobcats fan that I like, and you should like him too. Stephen Vitt, he is outstanding. He does a great job covering the Ohio Bobcats, and thank you so much for taking this opportunity to come on and join us. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate it.
It's game day in Buffalo. When the UB Bulls play, you need a solid game plan, and that includes great food. Anchor Bar is the official chicken wing of UB Bulls football, famous for its crunchy wings and signature sauce. Don't settle for average wings, choose the best. Whether tailgating or watching from home, grab a bucket of Anchor Bar wings and get ready to cheer on the Bulls. Order online at anchorbar.com or visit your local Anchor Bar. Horns up, Buffalo. Thank you to Steven for taking a few minutes to come on and join us here on Bullseye Nation, the podcast. Now it's time, Bulls fans, for that drive around the MAC, brought to you by Town Buick and GMC. We love our town. Go Bulls. And we'll start with the Ohio Bobcats. They had a coaching change. Brian Smith out. John Hauser officially taking over as the head man on the sideline for the Bobcats. Northern Illinois is leaving the MAC to head to the Mountain West. Sacramento State is nearing an agreement to join the Mid-American Conference to take over for Northern Illinois, which geographically, explain how that one makes sense. I don't really get it, but Sacramento State is nearing an agreement to join the MAC, and the MAC is potentially looking to move its championship game out of Ford Field in Detroit, which would be big because the MAC has held the championship game in Detroit for the last 3 decades. And that's a drive around the MAC news and notes brought to you by Town Buick and GMC. We love our town. UB Bulls fans, want to feel like a top athlete? You don't need to be a pro to train like one. Welcome to Catalyst Fitness, the official gym of the UB Bulls. We offer a world-class environment with top-notch gear, expert trainers, and a motivating community. Join us to crush your fitness goals. Whether you're aiming for a personal best or just need a push to get moving, ditch average workouts and train like a pro with Catalyst Fitness. Visit our website or stop by today. Go UB Bulls, go! And now, Bulls fans, we have a special treat for you, a new segment here on Bullseye Nation. It's our tech review segment where we look at technology in sports and how it's playing a big role in sports production. And today we're going to take a look at PTZ cameras, otherwise known as pan, tilt, and zoom cameras. They're used to capture key moments. And for UB, we noticed one especially in their game against Bowling Green during Victor Snow's 65-yard punt return for a touchdown. He took it all the way to the house. On that replay, there were at least 4 or 5 different angles breaking down how he was able to hit the holes hard, got away from defenders, and took it all the way. But those types of insights and those types of replay views from the field are all made possible thanks to PTZ cameras and the flexibility that they're able to provide sports broadcasts, especially for college football telecasts like the UB Bulls game against Bowling Green, a game that they ended up beating the Falcons 28-3. And that concludes our tech review segment here on Bullseye Nation, the podcast. On that note, thank you for tuning in, and that's going to do it for this edition of Bullseye Nation, the podcast. Be sure to tune in next time when we dive into another MAC spotlight of another UB Bulls football rival, the Miami of Ohio Redhawks, as we head down south in the state of Ohio. But until then, be sure to follow us on YouTube, also on X and Instagram at Bullseye Nation. But until next time, this is John Karuba signing off. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you again next time. So long, everybody.